Welcome back to the Scaredy Cat Guide, my friends. My name is Jenny, and today we are talking about one of my favorite rides of all time, Soarin' in Epcot. I'm not kidding you guys, I cry every time I get on this ride. There's something about it, I don't know. And the crazy thing is, I'm anxious pretty much every time I get on it as well. But there's something that is so magical and just so incredible. It brings me to tears every single time. If you're new here, this is the channel where we talk about Disney and anxiety. We talk about sensory issues and really just anything that you might want to know if you're an anxious rider in Disney World. Now, even though this ride is one of my favorites, there are definitely a few things that we need to talk about. Some things that might be a little intense for some people, that might be no problem for others, but you know what? We're gonna talk about it. Let's get into those details. This Epcot classic contains large screens, wind and smell effects, and of course, as a flight simulator, some heights, both real and simulated, but we'll get into that later. So let's start off by talking about motion sickness. Now, of course, this is a flight simulator. So like other simulators in the park, you do have a very large screen and some rushing visuals. Now, I've heard some people say that they have no problem with this ride while they do with other simulators. I've heard some say that this one makes them sick, so it really is very individual. It will depend on you specifically and whether or not these things are triggering to your motion sickness, but just know that there is a massive screen in front of you. The visuals, although gentle, are definitely moving at all times, and think like an IMAX movie or something like that where you really can't see the edge of the screen, so it really feels very immersive, like you're in it, but at the end of the day, it's still a screen, it's still a simulator, and it can definitely cause that motion sickness. Now, when it comes to sensory sensitivity, you will definitely find some piped in smells at various points on this ride. There are so many of these. Really, every new scene that you come across has a different smell piped in. They are all very pleasant, if you ask me. Nothing that is alarming or anything like that, but just be prepared. You definitely will have some interesting smells coming at you. On top of that, you will see some wind effects. It really does feel like you are gliding through the air. You have that wind rushing against you. Again, not super intense, but definitely enough to make you feel like you are really flying through the air. And the last thing I'll touch on here is there are a few sudden loud noises in this attraction. A few kind of startling moments, I would say. Again, they're not meant to be scary, but there are some fireworks. There's a moment where a kite kind of rushes right past the screen kind of unexpectedly, and it's, startling. It's not like a true jump scare, but because you are so immersed in this, the screen is absolutely massive. It can feel a little bit startling to some people. Now let's talk heights. This is the big one with this attraction. I've heard a lot of people ask, if you have a fear of heights, can you handle Soarin'? It's just a simulator. Are you really up that high? We're gonna talk about all that. So as I said before, this is a flight simulator. You are meant to feel like you are genuinely soaring hundreds of feet above the ground. This is very lifelike. Like I said, you cannot see the edges of the screen. It feels like you are really there, and it feels a little bit, realistic. And that's a wonderful thing. It's a very magical experience. But if your deepest fear is being that high above the ground, I would skip this one. Now, depending on which row you sit on, you will be between 30 and 50 feet above the ground. I'll just make a note here that if you would like to maybe ask a cast member about being placed lowest to the ground, be sure to ask for the third row. That is where you're going to be only 30 feet as opposed to 50 that you would be in the first row. The way that the ride system is situated is you board in these rows. They all swing up into a vertical position, so they're stacked above each other. So if you're on the last row, the third row, you will end up on the bottom. And again, I say the bottom, we're still 30 feet above the ground. Of course, you're not looking down. You really can't tell that you're really that high, but maybe it makes you feel better to know that you're only 30 feet and not 300 feet above the ground. Now, the good news is the ride time for this attraction is just under 5 minutes. This puts it in the very average range for other Disney attractions. It's not too long, it's not too short, so if you really do feel uncomfortable, you will not be up there for very long. And like I said before, this attraction is incredibly immersive. For me, as a claustrophobic person who really doesn't like long ride times, it really helps when the attraction is so immersive because you kind of forget where you are. You forget that you're in a ride system or a ride vehicle and you're just enjoying the experience. It really really is incredible. So just know that it is a very immersive ride, and that ride time to me doesn't really affect me. So let's talk about those ride vehicles. Now, this is a very unique ride system. It's not an Omnimover or anything else that you might have seen around the parks. At its core, like I said, it is a simulator, and it consists of 3 rows of suspended seats. Like I said, you are above the ground here, and each of them seat around 10 people per row. So this is a great one if you have a very large party. You can all sit together in one row. Now, as far as the movement goes, you will really just be gently swaying and turning and dipping just a little bit. Most of the action is taking place on screen. So the gentle movements that you have with the actual ride vehicle are very subtle. They're very small. They're really not thrilling. They can feel a little bit more intense than they actually are just because of what you're looking at on the screen. All that to say, I would not call this ride intense thrill-wise or anything like that. It really is very gentle, very relaxing even, but just know you will have a little bit of movement, a little bit of swinging and swaying, but it's not really terrifying or scary or anything like that. Now, as far as the ride restraints go, you will have just a simple seatbelt across your lap, just like a seatbelt in a car. It does not have an over the chest strap. It is just over your lap. And also you will have the option of using a little reinforcement strip. This is typically used for younger riders who you want to make sure are extra secure in there, but you of course can use it as an adult as well. It might be just the thing to make it feel extra secure. And now that you have all the facts, let's actually ride this thing. I'm so excited, y'all. I've been waiting for this all day, so let's hop in line. You'll find the entrance to this attraction in the Land Pavilion, just to your left when you're on the bottom floor. It's kind of tucked off to the side next to some bathrooms, but you will see the signs. And once you enter, you will find yourself in a series of long windowless hallways. I don't find this queue particularly claustrophobic. The hallways, even though there are no windows, they are kind of spacious and there's really plenty of room. It doesn't feel too closed off. There's very high ceilings. It's just worth noting that all of the queue is windowless and there's not a whole lot to look at. There are some neon decorations throughout the hallway, you know, maybe a little bit of variation here and there, but for the most part, it's, I mean, to me, kind of a boring queue. Not much to really like keep your attention, and the lines can get very long. So just keep that in mind, that you might want to bring something to do, maybe go grab a drink and enjoy it while you're waiting in line, because there's not much to this particular queue. Now, after making your way through this area and up a ramp, you will enter a second hallway that is very similar to the first. The decorations are maybe just a little bit different, and you will carry on until you finally come across your first cast member. Now, they will ask how many are in your party and send you on your way towards different areas of the loading station. You'll enter, yet again, another hallway, this one a little smaller than the last. Again, I don't find it just particularly claustrophobic, but I could definitely see how some people could have a problem with it. Luckily, this hallway is not nearly as long as the last. Now, finally, you will enter the pre-show area, and you will be sorted into lines depending on which row you will be sitting in. Now, this is the time to talk to a cast member. If you would really like to sit on that third row so that you were closer to the ground, go ahead and ask the cast member here if you can sit on row 3. You might have to wait just a bit longer so that they can make sure that you're on that row and that you don't slow down the queue, but they should be able to help you out there if you just explain your situation. And as you wait there for a moment, you will watch this fun little pre-show explaining the ride system and safety precautions and everything like that. And finally, you will be led into the theater. A cast member will show you which row you should go to, and you will put your belongings right under your seat, sit down, and then secure your seatbelt over your lap. Now, the loading process can take quite a while. I have noticed this the past few times that I've ridden. Just be prepared that it might be a little bit of a wait once you are seated and buckled in. But before long, the ride will set off and you will find yourself swinging upwards right up into this massive screen. Now, the ride itself is very straightforward. You go over these amazing scenes of beautiful areas throughout the world, amazing countries and landmarks, mountains, oceans, anything you can imagine, honestly. It is such a breathtaking experience, so beautiful. Like I said, you definitely will encounter different smells depending on which scene you are going over. It really is so immersive. It feels like you were really there. You've got the wind against your face. It's really incredible. Each scene lasts really just a few seconds at a time, so you don't really stay in one place for too terribly long. And even though this ride is very gentle and very relaxing, I feel like it moves along pretty quickly. Like, it's a pretty quickly paced ride, if that makes sense. Now, after flying over all of these amazing scenes, you will find yourself flying over Epcot in this beautiful nighttime view. You will see Tinkerbell fly across your screen, and just before the ride ends, you will fly up into the fireworks. Now, this is probably the most overstimulating part of the ride. Again, it's not terrible. It can just feel a little bit intense flying up into these fireworks where they're booming around you. Like I said, it's pretty loud. It really can feel like it kind of rattles your seat. You've got this huge screen in front of you, and it really feels like you're right there, right in the middle of the fireworks display. Again, it's not meant to be scary, but if you have someone with sensory sensitivity like me, it can just be a lot. And really, this is the only part of the ride that's like this, the very, very end. It lasts for just a few seconds, so if you feel like you can get through it, maybe just cover your ears at this part. I would say the rest of the ride is definitely worth this kind of sensory overload that you experience right at the end. And with that, the screen will go black and you will descend back down. You'll finally feel your feet on the ground again, where you can unbuckle and disembark. The cast member will send you on your way back out towards the exit of the attraction. Now, your exit will be a lot like your entrance. You go through really the same hallways that you went through before, and finally you will find yourself back at the entrance and exiting out towards the Land Pavilion. And there you have it. Let me know what you think about Soarin' Around the World in Epcot. This is one of my all-time favorite rides. I never miss it. Like I said, it gets me so emotional every time I ride it. Something about it is so magical. If you're new to the channel and you would like to see more videos like this one, feel free to subscribe, stick around, stay a while. We would love to have you in our little community of anxious riders. I love making these videos for you guys, talking with you and hearing what you have to say about all the rides. So please leave me a comment. I would love to chat. Any specific questions you might have, feel free to ask me. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one.